The migration debate is only just beginning, and it's not really a debate about who's coming across the channel in dinghies or summoning up some sort of anti Albanian feeling to deflect attention away from the serious chaos that is the Home Office. This year, we've had 504,000 UK migrants. That's the legitimate type. And some of these will be students, and that's risen a bit, possibly because we've moved from the COVID online teaching to face-to-face teaching, and possibly because some of the rules have changed, allowing students to come here and work for a short period after they've graduated. This restores some of the options available that were removed by Mrs. May. We've also seen a rise in legitimate refugees from Ukraine and from Afghanistan. Some of these have now been processed, Syria. But we simply don't have enough people to fill all the jobs. Now, one of the reasons is that if you want to sponsor people to come to this country, you have to meet certain requirements. I did, in fact, run a business and sponsor people to come to this country. You have to make sure that you are paying them £25,600 per year, that they've got academic qualifications. Both of those are quite difficult. Both of those are quite difficult to meet those targets. In fact, I think I've kept my sponsorship options, and I don't think. I know I haven't got anybody at the moment who is who I could or would sponsor. So in a way, my sponsorship license is wasted, and it cost quite a lot to set that up in the first place. Now, the real problem is not that we need lots of highly qualified staff to do the jobs, but that we've got huge vacancies among unqualified, unskilled workers. And a lot of jobs that we need, for example, driving trucks and so on, they simply cannot. We cannot fill those jobs. Now we've got a choice. We've got a choice. We can train more local people to do these jobs. That's one possibility. We can make the jobs more attractive by paying more money. Both of those options are the options put forward by Keir Starmer. But actually, the present government has been putting forward those options for the last 12 years, and in vain. In vain. This is something that Mrs. May was striking up, and she failed. So I don't think it works. I don't think it works. I think it's just sloganizing. I think it's more of the same. We need to have a reset. We need to rethink. How are we going to invite people to come to our country? How are we going to make our country interesting and profitable again? Well, actually, all the new ideas are going to come from abroad, because I think we've probably exhausted all our homegrown views. And we need, I'm afraid we need that burst of energy from abroad. So the more we harangue, victimize, abuse people who are coming to our country, the more difficult it is for us to pull ourselves out of this mess. The Bravermans, the Patels, the Raabs, they all need to rethink what they're doing, because they're setting the most appalling example to the rest of us. They are achieving nothing except pouring vile and bile onto a problem that actually can also be, in itself, a solution. If we had all these great number of people coming across the channel, and if we had them processed, they would miraculously overnight become taxpayers and workers. They would fill many of the vacancies that we now are desperate to fill. And our economy would be creaking back into life. At the same time, if we think that people coming across the channel is wrong, I happen to think it is, by the way. I happen to think we should never be putting people's lives in danger like that. Then there are various solutions. One solution is that we must make sure visas can be attainable and legal routes possible. So we need to cite visa centres in France, in Albania, on the borders of Europe. We also need to make it more attractive to come to the UK in a legitimate way. We can do that almost overnight. We need to process all the asylum applications fast. We can set that up and do that quite quickly. In fact, we should possibly be outsourcing some of that work. We're already giving it to ill-trained individuals. Well, we can train people quite quickly, particularly people who, for example, might actually be asylum seekers or, let's say, economic migrants themselves. We can train them to do that job. We also need to be working with governments outside the UK. And more than that, they are begging us to do so. We need to make sure that our obligations are met, that we have not left people behind in Afghanistan, for example. Because we may find, if the war in Ukraine and Russia continues, that we have to deal with more refugees from Ukraine. Nobody wants to be a refugee. Nobody wants to stay in another country, particularly one that is increasingly hostile. These people won't stay. These people will go back. Most of the so-called Albanian criminals, they're not criminals, only want to be here for a short time. They won't stay. They don't want to stay. Their home is in the north of Albania or wherever it happens to be. We are deceiving ourselves if we think people are coming here for our NHS. Our NHS is failing. Our NHS is on its knees. People are not coming here for health tourism. If you want to go to health tourism, you go to Turkey, a country which in the last 10 years has built its health service up from something which was second-rate to something which is more than first-rate, and has got an extraordinarily good balance between private and public healthcare. We could learn. There's so much that we could do if we stopped sloganizing and ranting and building up prejudice. It's time we did grown-up politics.